The nature of my knowledge. I think I know a few things. On the other hand, there are many things I know nothing about. But how do I actually know something, and what does it even mean to know? My immediate and fundamental experience of existence is based on the continuous flux of perception into my consciousness. Due to this flux, I first of all know that my consciousness exists, since tautologically, by the definition of consciousness, the conscious experience of my perception requires an experiencing consciousness. However, the appearance of continuity is based on my memory of the previous states of consciousness, and from experience I know that my memory is not always worthy of much trust. For example, it is a theoretical possibility that I was assembled together just a second ago, piece by piece, atom by atom, and this is what gave rise to all my memories, and not my actual authentic real-time experiencing of them. I don't seem to have any chance of making a distinction between this possibility and that what is usually called remembering, because the present moment would be exactly the same in both scenarios. In fact, according to the principles of quantum physics, perfect copies of me are spontaneously spawned and destroyed all the time everywhere for minuscule fractions of a second. And moreover, if the universe is infinite, all possible particle configurations appear infinitely many times in an infinity of different places. So how do I know that I'm not one of those random occurrences, but the real authentic me? I don't. Therefore, I notice that already at this point of my knowledge, I have to rely on an assumption. And accordingly, all my knowledge which is based on this assumption of the continuity of my existence and the approximate reliability of my memory is fundamentally uncertain. Furthermore, I cannot be totally sure of the existence of the reality external to my mind. In this observation lies the danger of solipsism. Solipsism is the philosophical view according to which the only thing one can know for sure is the existence of one's own consciousness. As I see it, this is a misunderstanding which stems from an unrealistic definition of knowledge. Uncertainty to me is not at all equivalent to not knowing. It is fully possible for me to evaluate the truthfulness of a statement in the light of evidence without absolute certainty. The evidence is stored in my memory and therefore its validity relies on the previous assumption of the reliability of my memory. The basic ingredients of the evidence are all kinds of regularities observed in my immediate experience. In particular, the continuity of my consciousness and the regularity of my experience are evidence for the authenticity of my memory and the existence of external reality. My experiences seem to translate regularly from the present moment to my memory, which constitutes, for the most part, a coherent picture of reality, both internal and external to my mind. If my experience of reality would be highly discontinuous and fragmented, I would have some reason to doubt the reliability of my memory, the existence of the external reality, or my own existence, but remarkably, this seems not to be the case. For example, I once saw a dream where I stepped out of a house in one city to a yard in another. If things like this happened in my waking reality, the regularity would be compromised, and I would be compelled to check my assumptions. On the other hand, it is exactly the irregularity of my dreams that allows for me to distinguish between what is real and what is dream. If my dreams were as regular as my waking experience, I would have no means to separate the two. Despite the regularity of my experience, it is of course always possible that the reality external to my mind is just an illusion, albeit a persistent one. For example, a scenario similar to the one in the movie Matrix, in which we all live our lives unknowingly in a virtual reality, our brains connected to a massive real-time computer simulation, while our bodies lie dormant in uterus-like liquid chambers as a part of some super-technological hyper-facility, is possible, at least in principle. But what's the difference between reality and a fully convincing illusion? Indeed, nothing. In other words, if I cannot make any distinction between the two in any possible situation, the underlying truth doesn't make any difference whatsoever. On the other hand, it is of course a possibility that at some point in the future I will realize that the reality external to my mind is an illusion after all. In the same way as I wake up every morning realizing that all my dreams were just an illusion generated by my own mind. Phew, it was just a dream. So, how can I ever know anything about the external world if I cannot even be sure it exists? This is exactly due to the nature of my knowledge. My knowledge is obtained by induction with respect to the regularities of experience. For instance, when I have released a ball 1,000 times in a row and observed it to fall down each and every time, I infer inductively that the ball always falls down. Well, at least today at this very spot. The inductive knowledge which I gather through my observations is never completely certain. There may always occur an exception which I couldn't foresee. I can never be absolutely certain that the ball will not fall up on the next time or that my consciousness remains intact and coherent to the next second. It is just that based on the regularities I have experienced, I have learned to consciously anticipate certain occurrences, and this is what I call knowledge. Thus, all my knowledge is scientific in the broadest sense, theories and hypotheses, to which the philosophy of science can be applied. Correspondingly, science is the institutionalization of my knowledge. All my knowledge is only falsifiable but never verifiable, since I remember things only from the past, yet I experience the present.